On Ticker, this is Import Export with Lawrence Christophels.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. It's our second episode of the Import Export Show here on Ticker TV. My name is Lawrence Christophels from the Australian Trade and Logistics Corporation. We've had another massive week in trade. The impacts of coronavirus are really starting to freak a lot of people out in relation to getting their products out of China, the freight impacts, the whole supply chain concerns around that. We've had the Brexit progressing now with the UK exit last week, and what are the impacts continue to sort of unfold there with the European Union and the UK's exit. We've also had the Trump acquittal, so we've got a whole range of things that may impact on some forex and market conditions there as well. And on a local front, everyone's back at work, so kids are back at school, so we're truly into the full swing of international trade and domestic business. On today's show, we've got some fantastic guests. I'm going to be joined first and foremost with Megan Edwards. Megan Edwards is a specialist in LinkedIn. She does a lot of workshops around the country around how to maximise a LinkedIn profile, how to really get the most out of that. And why that's important is that more and more so, your personal brand, your company brand, social media in general is forming more and more part of global business strategies, and helps companies with their global branding and their import-export strategies as well. So we're going to kick off and ask you to welcome Megan Edwards. So Megan, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Long time no see. We had a great event in Melbourne here last night. We had a fantastic response. So again, we had so many interesting diverse questions around what they should be doing with LinkedIn profile. And I wanted to ask, how have you sort of coached your clients in relation to looking at LinkedIn as it is truly a global platform? And I know you had some statistics and figures last night around the scale of that, so it'd be really interesting to talk about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting platform because there's a lot of fear amongst business people that they're putting themselves out there on something like LinkedIn.
Yep.
But the reality is that we're all trading a social currency nowadays.
Yep.
And whether you're an organisation or an individual, you have to own that and you have to lean into it in order to build relationships, in order to close deals, because it's validation.
It's all that credibility piece too. I mean, the first thing I do, if I get an email from anyone overseas, you're literally looking them up on LinkedIn to see what the background is, what their experience is, are they worth your time to talk to? So I'm assuming if you're an exporter here in Australia and you want to try and tap into some global buyers overseas, they'll be doing exactly the same on their side.
They do, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
That's the confronting part for a lot of people, that you wouldn't know someone's looking at your profile.
Right.
But just in the same way that 10 years ago we had to scurry to get our websites established, LinkedIn's become perhaps even more important from that perspective, because people feel it's about you rather than marketing speak generally.
And what's the size? How many users are on LinkedIn globally and here in Australia?
In Australia, it's around 11 million, or just over, which is pretty reasonable considering our population. And internationally, it's 673 million.
Wow, incredible! Yeah, so it is really you have to be on there. There's no ifs or buts about it.
No, and it's escalated over the last probably 2 to 3 years, particularly around the time that Microsoft took over. It became far more commercial, and they leveraged their own experience. But also they tapped into what users were asking for from other social platforms. So
I want to ask Megan, so and I know we had this question in a small way at last night's event, but with your personal brand versus a company brand, how do you balance the two? What's the best type of way to maximise both on LinkedIn?
You have to start with maximising you.
Okay.
Because that's where the algorithm shows preference for your personal profile, and that's where people feel connected and want to work with you. So if you're building a presence and you start from the company side of things, it's a very slow, very uphill battle, because we want to connect person to person.
And I think that what I see, and I'm no social media guru, I'm actually learning all the time, but things like influencers, and you see this whole opportunity for them to to be the personal brand and then brands attached to them. So you see that all over Instagram and all the other social media channels, but especially the younger generation, they're really influenced, a bit of a cliche, they're influenced by these people so powerfully, and then the brands are attached. So I suppose this day and age where employees aren't typically at a role more than, I think the statistic is 4 to 5 years as an average duration now of employment. So it is more important than ever that you have your personal brand attached to your expertise in that field. And I wanted to ask you another question, is that, without notice, but what if you change careers? So many people will have they'll have a sea change and think, do you know what? I've been a corporate banker for 10 years and now I want to be a landscape gardener. So how do you, how does that work, and how do you sort of manage that sort of thing with LinkedIn?
It's really interesting, and I've been working with somebody around that at the moment who's going from food across to coaching.
Right.
So every industry. But it's really remaining true to the individual once again, irrespective of the industry you've come from or the role you're moving towards. You as a person should never change. Right. It's purely the skills surrounding that. And you just have to continue being you more than anything.
On that point itself, my whole sort of career is built around international trade, supply chain, logistics, but I'll get a number of requests outside that field. Should I be open to that? Should I be taking those? Is it hurting me with my algorithm, or is it better just to sort of accept everyone and grow the network?
You have to be very strategic, or you immediately start to diminish and water down your impact.
Right.
And you start to attract people that fundamentally you can't help.
Okay.
So unless you're going into it for fame, which most businesses are not, there's a commercial outcome in mind.
Okay.
And that's where the influencers have a different objective. But for a business person, it's about your credibility, and it's about ultimately connecting with people that you're going to have a relationship with.
Sure.
Either as a joint venture or as a client. And so connecting with everybody is a very scattergun approach.
Yeah. And in relation to international exposure, and you want to really promote yourself, your own brand, is it the right time? Obviously, we're in different time zones here in Australia to other markets. Is there a right time to try and hone in on a particular market? So if I'm a food exporter here in Melbourne, and I'm trying to target, let's say France, and I want to put posts up about me, about my product, and how we've just innovated this new product. It's great, and I want to try and work the posting time out so that I'm maximising exposure or views of certain country time zones. Is that something that people should be aware of, or does it just be any time is fine?
Any time is fine if you don't care who sees it.
Okay, yeah.
So you do need to be mindful of, well, what's the person I'm trying to reach doing at the time that I'm posting?
Sure.
Are they sleeping? Are they having their morning coffee?
Yeah.
And that's where people tend to gravitate towards before and after work, commuting times, meal breaks, things like that, because they assume, rightly or wrongly, that that's when people have more time to consume.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is, particularly now that we've well and truly landed in the digital age, that everyone's got a phone in their hands. There is no such thing as an ideal time. It's more about the time that the audience is receptive to the message, not just looking for entertainment, but receptive to what you've got to say.
And I think even more so, I think with other, let's say, platforms of social media, it is more about in your own time, whereas LinkedIn now is accepted by most businesses as part of your work or part of your career. So I know from a HR perspective, a lot of recruiters and all that sort of stuff, they're on LinkedIn all day. They're looking at candidates or looking at trends in certain sectors. So they're literally, it's part of their job to be on LinkedIn on a regular basis. But then there's professionals who are employees, and they'll say, well, okay, I want you to look at, from a sales pipeline point of view, here are some key people that we want to talk to, here's some industry sectors or clients, company details, find out who's in the company that we can approach to try and to get a foot in the door. So it is very much a different type of timing. You don't have to do it on your coffee break or on a lunch break, or it's not something that you do on the train on the way to work. It may be increasingly like a high sort of time zone, but it is really hard, even myself, when I post on LinkedIn, what time should I post? There's really no way of me knowing that.
And it comes down to, as I said, the objective. You know, who are you trying to reach, and what do you want them to do in response? What's the outcome that you're seeking? If it's just visibility, maybe it's enough to see you going through their news feed each day. But if you actually want them to respond, maybe you choose a time that they're able to digest the information.
Sure. Well, that actually, one thing you mentioned at last night's event was really opened my eyes up a lot. Was you said on a Sunday afternoon you can appeal to higher executives, sort of C-suite executives, by posting that Sunday afternoon, which totally took me by surprise.
Yeah, and yet when you think about it, most of us as either execs or business owners are using those moments in our week to recalibrate, to plan out the week ahead. You know, what am I wanting to achieve? What have I not caught up with that I want to do some reading on? And so it makes sense that you've got time then to receive a message and really ponder it, rather than just go, that was great, keep moving. Yeah,
well, it makes sense. It's a sense of, if you're busy back-to-back meetings, 8 to 6 type of PM, you're not going to have a chance to even look at your LinkedIn feed. But on a weekend, you might have the paper in the morning, on a Sunday in the afternoon. You might be taking the kids out to sport or something, and you're checking out your feed and think, oh, hang on, I've got a chance to catch up on what happened this week.
Yes.
So it makes a lot of sense, and totally took me by surprise. So the other thing I wanted to ask, and I know that you do these workshops where you really hone in, so we can only sort of touch the tip of the iceberg with our dialogue this morning, but with establishing your credibility as a personal brand, are there any do's and don'ts that you should be doing on LinkedIn or shouldn't be doing?
I think first and foremost, it's just be you, as I said earlier on. Don't try to craft a LinkedIn persona that is not how you are in real life, because we can all smell a phony from a mile off these days. And just share what it is that is important to you. Be mindful that it's a professional context, but don't feel as though you have to shave off the personality in order to get your message through.
And another takeaway, which you just reminded me of from yesterday, that again I literally made a note of, is that the manners and the actual etiquette of if someone posts or responds to a post that you made or makes a comment, then you should. The analogy you used yesterday, I'd ask if you could repeat it, because it was really powerful and again quite eye-opening for me. So the point where if you've made a post and I've commented on it, then not doing anything about that can be quite strange.
Like the phone ringing, and you answer it, and then nobody speaks at the other end. Exactly, and we can all relate to that. And it feels weird. Well, it feels weird to the person who's commented on your post, and then there's silence from your end. And we're all too time poor these days to be throwing our opinions at a post and for no avail.
Because people will just they won't bother in the future if they don't feel like it's been valued or appreciated.
No, and it makes a dent in your reputation too, however small.
Great. And I think that global part as well, Megan, is that again the etiquette is really important. The sense of doing business in Asia, in markets within Asia, it's very different to do business in China, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia. They've all got their certain nuances. And as someone who's using social media as a platform to try and expose their type of brand, personal brand and product or corporate brand into those markets, they have to be mindful of that and maintain professionalism in all cases. So it is a challenge, I think, using the 600 and something million viewers of LinkedIn. It's 11 million here in Australia is probably it's great here in Australia, but you are getting that global feed. So it's important to really be mindful of that. So it is a challenge, and I think that what we're trying to take away from today's discussion, I'm going to ask you to continue to join us for the rest of the show, Megan, if you could, because it's been great talking to you about what the impacts of social media and your personal brand is for a global business as an importer or exporter. We're going to have a break. We're going to have James King here from AFEX on foreign exchange and the current market trends, so that's really important. But love to stick around and keep going. So thanks very much. Please continue to join us after the break. We've got James King from AFEX coming up next to join the panel.